It's something you never want to hear your doctor say. I'm sorry, it's cancer. Suddenly everything you've built, everything you've depended on up till this point is under question. Your career, your financial arrangements, your relationships, your faith. A sudden reminder of your mortality has a way of throwing light on the priorities you've been living by, of waking you up.
This is Signs of the Times Radio with Kent Kingston.
Welcome to Signs Radio. Hey, I think this is the first episode of 2020, so Happy New Year. And in the studio with me here in Sydney is my boss, so I better watch my P's and Q's today, Tracey Bridcutt, who's not really here in her capacity as my boss, but has a personal story to tell that links with a great article she's written in this month's Signs of the Times, the January-February issue. How are you, Tracey?
I'm very well, thank you, Kent.
Excellent, excellent. Maybe I'll should ask for a pay rise before the end of the episode, and you're on the spot and live to the nation.
Don't push the friendship, please.
No, that's good. But you wrote something in the Science magazine that is really personal for you, your experience of going through cancer. You've called it Lessons from the Radiotherapy Room. I guess for a lot of us, it'd just be like, lessons? What? So long as I'm out of the radiotherapy room, I'm happy. But you actually got something out of it, which is a little bit surprising, and I guess we'll get there. But first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, just so people can sort of picture, who you are, what stage of life you're in, what's going on with your life and family.
Sure. I am a mum, first and foremost, mum of 3 children. Mm-hmm. They're all what you'd call young adults now, pretty much off my hands, very independent.
Except when they want money.
Well, that's right, or being driven around somewhere, of course. Now, I've also been a journalist for 25 years, somewhere around that time. So been doing a lot of writing over the years, obviously. Been an editor of community newspapers, now working in a communication media capacity. Okay.
And so you, as you say, you're working in community newspapers for a while, and I guess in that time, you mentioned in your article you met with a lot of people who had gone through struggles with cancer. You, I guess, went to hospitals that had innovative treatments and all that sort of stuff. So I guess you had a fairly sophisticated understanding of cancer, up until the point where this became an issue for you personally.
Yeah, certainly did, Kent. One of my rounds at the newspaper was the health round. And it just so happens that I did quite a few stories of people with cancer, various stages, from early cancer, early diagnosis, to those who were in the last stages of the disease. Also, as you say, with regard to new technology, there was obviously breakthroughs happening all the time. So, it was quite, I sort of felt somewhat like an expert on cancer. I'd seen pretty much every angle. Even as I said in the article, there was a gentleman who had the rare case of breast cancer himself. I think it's just like 1% chance that a male could get it. So
yeah, I actually remember a guy in Adelaide who had the same thing, and it is fairly rare, but apparently if a man has breast cancer, it is a particularly nasty version, and if you can dodge that bullet, you're doing really well.
Yes, that's what I understand. Also, because it is so rare, often it can be misdiagnosed because doctors don't, some doctors, I guess, don't really sort of see that it could be something to happen in men. But certainly, gentlemen, if you notice any changes in that area, get it checked out.
Wow. And I guess for women, breast cancer is in the top 3 of the most common cancers, isn't it? Is it the most, or it's somewhere near the top, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. It certainly is, right up there. Also, fortunately, there's been a lot of work in that area, a lot of promotion, a lot of awareness now. So I think the message is getting out there.
And I guess it was the case, probably a few decades back that, the big C was sort of, code for a death sentence in some ways. But it seems that, treatments have been improving, and there are there are particular cancers now that it seems we can deal with fairly effectively most of the time. Is that your understanding?
It is, particularly breast cancer. I understand now that I think around 90% perhaps even of women now survive at least for 5 years and often much longer than that. In my case, I was diagnosed 10 years ago.
Well, there you go. And it does spark a fear, I guess, doesn't it? I remember, was it Angelina Jolie, like a few years back, sort of being faced with, hey, this is in my family, and having to, deciding to make some pretty radical, decisions about that. It's a scary thing, isn't it?
Oh, it certainly is confronting, and I think because also I'd had so much exposure to other people's stories, particularly those who were in a terminal situation. I just sort of immediately thought, oh, I'm going to die. That's it. That's the end of it. And
wow.
It was quite shocking. I was very upset at the time.
Yeah, well, you would be. Is there any history of cancer in your family, or breast cancer in particular?
No, there's not. So that's another reason why it just sort of blew me away. I thought, no, it can't be happening to me. I thought I'd lived a fairly healthy life, don't drink, don't smoke, any of those things. So I also have a vegetarian lifestyle. So yeah, it was complete shock, to be honest.
I guess those things they do those lifestyle factors do sort of reduce our risk, don't they, of getting cancer? But reducing the risk is not quite the same as cancelling out the risk altogether.
Oh, for sure. Look, in hindsight, now I look back, I sort of thought I was healthy, but in reality, I was actually not as healthy as I sort of had in my mind, in that I was working a couple of jobs at the time. I was snacking on junk food. I wasn't getting exercise, all those things that, now they talk about as needing to do to stop these sort of nasties developing in your body.
Yeah, and look, I'd love to talk to you, later about like what changes you've put into place now. That'd be really interesting. But can we just go back first of all, because you don't really talk about this in the article, but I understand that this diagnosis of breast cancer for you was a bit of a shock. It sort of came out of the blue. Was almost discovered accidentally. What happened there?
Well, look, I was actually just going for my regular 12-monthly checkup with my GP, and so she checks all the usual things. And in checking my breast, she thought she noticed something in my right side, and she said, "Look, haven't had a mammogram yet. We'll send you along, get the scan, and see what happens." As it turns out, I had the scan and it showed that my right side was fine, but actually they detected cancer in the left side.
Wow, okay.
So
and this is something they recommend for women from, is it like 45 years of age and onwards sort of thing?
Look,
a mammogram?
Yeah, they do. Unless you've got a family history, then they would suggest, earlier than that.
Wow. So one of these sort of just in case sort of, that's a bit strange. Yeah, and on the other side as well, that is weird.
Yeah, look, there were as I said, the right side was fine in the whole scheme of things, and then they found it on the other side. So yeah, it was just a bit of a fluke, a miracle, I guess.
Yes, incredible. So and that's the point where I guess you were shocked and thought, heck, I'm going to die. It's curtains for me. Is that the point when you were thinking that?
Yeah, I think it was just the shock at first, and then the particular time of year when I was diagnosed didn't help because I was diagnosed exactly a week before Christmas.
Oh.
So, as you know, it's one of those frantic times of year that you can't really follow anything up. Yeah, everything's in a little bit of chaos around the house and whatever. That also delayed everything. So before they could do biopsies and all those sort of things, couldn't do it straight away. So then that lets your mind sort of get more and more anxious about it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was a bit of a challenging time.
Wow. So once you had the biopsy and it was confirmed, yes, this is the real deal, what options were you faced with then? Because I know some people are like, oh, I want to go the health route. I just want to, go fully vegan or on a juice diet or something, and I'm going to kill this that way. Was that sort of a part of the options that you're looking at, or were you like, nah, let's get in there and like nuke it sort of thing?
Yeah, look, no, I wasn't sort of taking any risks. I wanted to obviously follow the advice of the breast cancer surgeon. She was very good, explained everything clearly, and just had the surgical option.
Mm-hmm. So surgery and then what, chemotherapy, radiotherapy?
No, I had, so the surgery, that's correct. Then they wait a few weeks for that area to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yes, I had radiotherapy after that. So that was one session a day for 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So 30 sessions altogether of radiotherapy. I was very fortunate in that the cancer had not spread. They found after they'd done the surgery and they sent it away for testing that there was no evidence that it had spread, so I wasn't required to have chemotherapy.
Oh, okay. So very localised, not spread to lymph or system or anything. Well, that would have been good, and I guess this is probably behind what you say in your article. Catching it early, if you possibly can, is the best way to go.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate that they did catch it so early. Otherwise, it could be a whole different story.
Mm. You mentioned your kids before. You said, they're young adults now, but this happened, what was it, 10, 12 years ago or something? So they weren't young adults then. What do you say to kids about this? I mean, because obviously you have these terrible fears, rolling around in your head that you might not even be here, a year or so from now. Like, what was your thinking around that, and what did you and your husband end up deciding to say to your kids?
Yeah, look, it was hard. They were all in primary school at that stage. I think one was just about to start school, actually. So it was quite a hard thing. In the end, we just kept our language sort of, we had the sort of private discussions between myself and my husband, obviously, and we just tried to keep it business as usual at home. Mm-hmm. They did see Mummy crying from time to time, I have to say, and they were quite worried. What's wrong, Mum? What's wrong, Mum? But as it turned out, we also had a family friend whose father died on the same day. So
wow.
I think
same day you were diagnosed.
Yeah. So it was just a really terrible day, and I think they sort of perceived that was what Mummy was really upset about, not so much about my health. Although obviously, when I did have the operation, they knew that. But we tried to keep it as low key as possible until we sort of knew what we were dealing with also. Yeah,
there's no point in planting the fear of the unknown and all the terrible possibilities before you really know. And how did they cope with that, do you think?
Look, they seemed to be fine. They, carried on their normal, I guess, happy-go-lucky selves. So, I didn't perceive them as being any more clingy than usual or anything like that. They seem to take it in their stride, fortunately. Yeah,
so if it looks like Mum and Dad are coping with it, then that sort of models to the kids that, we can get on with this, it's okay. Well, that would have been better, I guess. And what about your friends or your church family or things like that? Because, there are some people who, when they hit a crisis like this, they'll call on their sort of social circle to rally around them, to pray for them, and others of us are a little bit more private and a bit less likely to to do that kind of thing. Where were you on that continuum?
Well, I did feel that I needed prayer, most definitely. My church pastor actually thought it would be a good idea to convene a prayer session. So my husband and I went along and just to our church, and it was with the pastor and some of the senior pastoral team, like the elders and a few people like that. And, it was really touching and really, really well appreciated that they did that. They took the time to pray with me. It really, I really did feel at the time that it calmed me down and just felt that, God was with me. He had this.
Okay. So you were attending church fairly regularly up to this point, but still it must have, like you say, you were living a fairly healthy lifestyle and, not drinking, not smoking, sort of ticking a lot of health sort of boxes. Was there a sense of, God, why me? What have I done to deserve this? Or sort of any sort of spiritual difficulties that came out of this? Any questions you were struggling with?
Look, I think because of my journalistic background, I'd seen so many bad things happen in the world and obviously bad things happening to good people. So I understood, it wasn't from God. It was just one of those things of living in a sinful world where, unfortunately bad things do happen. So look, I did, getting into the radiotherapy room, it did, bring it home. And
that was a bit of a crunch point for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which is where you start your article. You're there feeling very vulnerable, all alone. And
that's right. It's a really unusual experience because you are just left there. Well, not really to your own devices, but
so they're scary medical devices.
Yeah, yes. And you've got this huge machine sort of hovering, as I say in the article, hovering over you because it sort of shoots the beams from a couple of different angles. So and during that time you've got to stay perfectly still, otherwise it could send the beams into areas that you don't need them, especially on the left side. I was thinking, oh, my heart. So at those times, I was just I looked up, and in the roof of the radiotherapy room, actually, I could see this cross. Just, I think it was just the tiling or something at the time, and I just kept my focus on that, and I thought, that's God's with me. That's that's a message.
Wow, that's. I hadn't. I don't think you included that detail in your article, but I'm just getting an image of that. You're suddenly connecting with Jesus, I guess, on the cross. He was pinned down, pinned up, couldn't move. There, sort of, dangling naked, and you probably would have been, and everyone, all his friends deserting him, and you must have felt in a similar place in some ways.
Well, that vulnerability, I think, obviously he was, not obviously comparing anything to what, he went through, but I guess it's that vulnerability, but also knowing that God was there and he was, just protecting me, because the first session that I had, I was just so nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I was quite panicky, but just feeling his presence, it really did make a difference. Really
calmed you, because I guess everyone has to leave the room because there's radiation in there. So they leave you with the radiation, and they all... That's
right. You can talk to them, and they're in, behind a big... You sort of see them in a big window in the distance, but it's quite a big room. It's quite an experience, actually. So
it's funny what you get used to. My dad went through cancer last year himself, bowel cancer, and before this all happened, I think one of the worst horrors I could ever imagine would be to actually have your intestines diverted to a little bag on the outside of you.
Right,
it just sounds absolutely hideous. And he went through that, and now he's like, oh, it was fine. Once you get used to it, once you learn how to manage it, you just get on with your life, do all the normal things. And it's funny, isn't it, how something that at first just seems so horrible and medical and strange, you actually become used to. And you suggest in your article that, that was your first radiotherapy treatment, but as time went on, it was like, oh, here we go, back for another zap session. It's funny what we can put up with, isn't it?
Well, it is. One other thing that I didn't mention in the article, actually, Kent, was I also, throughout the process, happened to get my first tattoo.
Oh, really?
Don't be worried now.
Course, because when you get radiotherapy, they have to mark the spot where the laser hits from each side.
That's right.
Because the lasers have to intersect at the point where the tumour is or whatever. So
so I can say I've got tattoos.
You've got tattoos, there you go.
So they do that, so they don't have to draw the exact pinpointed spot every time. So Yeah,
Yeah, there
so
you go.
that was actually painful.
It was only
And I wouldn't recommend getting tattoos.
it was only a little dot.
It was. Well, I think 3 of them in the end.
Three of
But
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it hurt.
Well, there you go. Wow. Okay. So, at what point did you become aware that, hey, this treatment has worked, and they gave you the all clear?
Not really until I had initially when we got the results from the surgery. So they sent it away, obviously, for testing. So that was the first big relief. Okay,
No
they
sign
think
of it.
they've got it all,
Yeah.
but there is always that chance that one of the cells may have been rather naughty and escaped into, some
Elsewhere.
other, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's why they do the radiotherapy, just to make sure that, there's no chance of it.
Anything in surrounding tissue.
Yeah. And then, of course, then you go back each year for a check to make sure,
Yeah.
everything's okay. I have blood tests as well, which can indicate inflammation and other things that
Wow.
possibly, could be a sign of cancer. So, yeah, there's a range of different things that they do now to keep an eye on things.
Wow. So, what has changed, post cancer, for you? Do you look at life differently? Have you? I mean, you mentioned before some of your health habits may have changed a bit. Yeah, give us a little bit of a picture.
Sure. Look, my life has changed in a few ways. Definitely look at life differently. I used to be, I guess, the typical mum, career woman, trying to juggle everything and not being successful with anything. But now I am, less harsh on myself, try and take it all in my stride. Yeah, not sweat the big stuff, as they say, or the little stuff, isn't it? The little stuff. So that's that side of things.
And I guess there's nothing like cancer to help you decide what actually is the big stuff and the little stuff.
Well, that's right. What's important in life, it certainly sets your priorities in a different, differently.
Yeah,
So-
wow. And health-wise? I mean, you said you're already vegetarian and not drinking and smoking. What else is there?
Look, I now exercise regularly, so that's one of the things I do. Try to do at least 30 minutes a day. And
Actually, I remember you gave up sugar for a while, didn't you?
yeah, look, I am pretty much sugar-free still. Just try and avoid. I do have the occasional piece of dark chocolate. I've got a real liking for dark chocolate now. I
love it.
never used to like dark chocolate.
There you go.
But now I look, 85%. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Yay. So, yeah, that's changed. Also, I do, pretty much since I was diagnosed, every night I make myself a bit of a smoothie of berries, some orange juice, a little bit of LSA, if you know what that is.
That's
linseed.
Sunflower.
And almond. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you're getting those phytonutrients into
Yeah, all of that. So berries are meant to be really good cancer fighters.
Oh, antioxidant.
Yeah, the antioxidants, that's right. So, look, I'm just, what you said before about did I just go down the natural route? Look, I think you've got to be wise. I think, okay, I've had the surgery, had the medical side of things, but then there's the ongoing. I think you've really got to keep on top of it, make sure, I'm determined to make sure it doesn't come back again. So
And of course, statistically, someone who's already had cancer is then at higher risk of a reoccurrence. So it's no time to rest on your laurels, I guess, is it?
No, that's right. Yeah. You've got to be doing everything that you can to make sure you're in the ultimate sort of healthy state as much as possible and, look after yourself.
So when you, I guess, life goes on and you must confront other people, that's family, friends, people from church who are going through, a similar sort of thing. Do you feel differently towards them? Do you feel like you sort of have a bit more of an idea of what to say to them or how to help them?
Look, I do. I had another she was a young mum actually from church, and she was going through it, maybe couple of years ago now. So certainly you have that empathy with what they're experiencing, provide any guidance or support. One thing that was really really nice and helpful for myself was that my children's school, like when I was having radiotherapy and whatnot, they have a little program called Meals with Love.
Oh, yeah.
And so they send home a few meals, just to provide that support, show that they care.
So that was one less thing that you didn't have to do. Yeah.
That's right. So it really helped me and knew that, people cared. And so, I would think that that's the sort of thing if you do have a family member or friend who is going sort of through these things, sadly just be there, be a listening ear, but also think of some practical opportunities like, cooking, maybe caring for their kids while they go to the appointments. There's a range of things that you can do just to provide that support.
Wow. And in terms of spiritually, do you feel like closer to God after this? Or, there must be questions. Some people have what do they call it, survivor's guilt, like how come other people, die and I got cured? How do you make sense of all that? And how are you getting on with God these days?
Yeah, look, I think I try not to, I try not to think about, that sort of question as why,
the
why,
the what ifs,
it's hard. It's hard in this world to know why. I just think that, it wasn't my time, that God had a bigger plan for me. I kind of feel that my current role is that bigger plan. I'm constantly asking for his, God's advice, his help. I just say, look, you show me what you want me to do in this role. I want to honour you. I want to spread awareness of you. So that's my. So I guess it has in that way. I've got that constant conversation going. Yeah,
I'm remembering that old sort of preacher's saying that says, if God is going to take you to it, he'll take you through it. And that seems to have been your experience. He allowed that to happen to you, but he didn't abandon you through it. And it's
not at all.
Yeah, really good to hear. Hey, thanks so much, Tracey, for being so open and sharing your story. It is a personal story. It's a story of pain, but it is a story of hope and recovery. So, I know our readers will really enjoy, reading the magazine, reading your article there, and I know everyone will have loved hearing your story. So thanks so much for your time today.
Oh, no problem. Thanks, Ken.
Today's episode was based on an article appearing in this month's Signs of the Times magazine. A subscription is just $26 for 11 issues a year. To find out more, visit signsofthetimes.org.au. Signs of the Times has been published in Australia since 1886 and is proudly produced by Adventist Media.
This is an Adventist Media podcast.